Hello, 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 and welcome to the final edition of the Data Schools Learn What the Data Schools webinar series. I'm Chris Marland, and this is
Ross Easton over here.
we're going to be talking about APIs. So Ross knows nothing about APIs. You see, absolutely nothing. So he's sitting in the same chair you guys are. If you know nothing. And we're all going to be learning together about what APIs are and how to use them in Alteryx. So if you're wondering, essentially API stands for Advanced Programming Interface. Sounds scary, eh? But I wouldn't get too caught up in that, to be honest. The actual full name it means nothing. Let's ignore it. You know, I don't care. Do you agree with me, Ross? Should we ignore
You can't get too hung up on it.
Okay, yeah. Can't get too hung up on it. Brilliant. So, look at what an API is. So, basically, you've got computer 1 and computer 2. Now, computer 1 wants some data. Computer 2 has some data. How do they get it? How does that communication happen? They use an API, basically. Computer 1 will send a signal off to computer 2, you know, beep, beep, beep kind of thing. And that is the API, that communication. Now, can I have some data? And here's some data. That's essentially what an API is. It's communication, it's talking, it's sending that request over and getting something back. So, general versions of there's some key terms involved in an API. Now, I don't really want anyone getting too upset and obsessed about, you know, how do we define these things. So what I've done is in the chat, I have dropped a file share link. If you can't see that link, please comment, and my great assistant Ross will reshare that link to make sure you can get it. So I'll just give you 1 minute to just download that, and then we'll whiz through these definitions. In the meanwhile, how's your day been, Ross?
Yeah, not too bad. Coming up for Christmas. Very exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting, isn't it?
Wonderful time of the year.
I had a great lunch.
As did I, actually. Yeah.
I had spicy meatballs from the butchers outside the office. It was brilliant, actually. Really good meat. Really fresh meat. The kind of fresh meat you don't often get in a city like London. So, given you enough time, I hope. Ross, has anyone?
Someone's just joined after we posted.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So if you joined just after I posted the link, then it's possible you can't see it. So Ross is just sending you that link. Brilliant. Okay, sent. Okay, hopefully everyone's got that. Right, so a command. Okay, so that's the actual request. So that is what computer 1 sends to computer 2. That's the speech bit of it, if you know what I mean. That will always come in the format of a URL, which I call an URL. Don't judge me, please. You know, Ross is judging me right now. He is. But yeah, so the command is that kind of full request. I think of it as the verbal bit. So in this example, I put underneath, you know, assuming there's a DS17 website, DS17 being Data School's 17th cohort, and you wanted to look into me for whatever reason, you wanted to look at my notes on APIs or whatever, this is how you might construct that command. But that command is that full bit of text, that full URL. Is that clear, do you think? What problems are we having?
The link is taken to a file not found.
Link is going to file not found. Okay. So what we'll do is if you all just leave it for now, don't worry about these definitions for now. I'll ride you through them. But if you comment your email address in the comments, I will send you the PDF with all these key definitions. If that's not working for you, okay? Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Brilliant. So the stem. So the stem of the API is basically the thing that always stays the same. So no matter what information you want from from computer 2, no matter what information or like specific sort of parameters, we'll look at parameters later, but no matter what you change, this is the bit that stays the same. And that will always be the website. And normally 9 times out of 10 will be /API/ and then the rest of the URL. Okay, now the parameter. So this is a bit more of an adjustable bit. So here, you know, if you're going to the DS17 API, you want information on us, and you want to look at Chris, me, because you know I'm a very interesting person. Of course, you want to know about me. So you would put in, you know, person equals Chris. That's the parameter. The person means you want to know about a particular person, and then equals, you specify which person you want to know about. Okay. All clear on your end? You think?
I've posted a new link.
So Ross has just posted a new link, so hopefully that'll work. If not, again, just post your email address and I will send that to you later after the webinar. Okay. So the key. Now the key bit about keys is I think about this as a password essentially. You know, you're given a key which says you have access. So when computer 1 talks to computer 2, computer 2 knows that computer 1 has permission to see this data or this information because the key is correct. And normally that'll go at the end, not always, but normally that's at the end, and it'll just be the key equals blah, 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 blah. And that key is often, you know, a random collection of letters and numbers in something that makes kind of sense. So then you've got documentation. Documentation is what gives clarity to all of this. So you may have been thinking, when it comes to constructing these URLs, well, how do I know what I can access? How do I know who the people are? How do I know what information I can get? Documentation is the answer. Documentation is normally, you know, a web page. You will go on, you'll look at it, and you'll see the kind of information you can request and how to request that. And hopefully documentation will be very good. Sometimes documentation is very bad, to be honest. Transport for London particularly, not a fan. But yeah, so documentation's a mixed bag, but generally the purpose of any documentation, which will be a website, will be to explain what kind of parameters you can use, how to put the key in, etc., etc. Then the method. So APIs can do a lot of things. We're going to very explicitly focus on APIs as a way of accessing and getting data. So all we're concerned about here is get. That basically means if I put get into my API request, then I will get something out, you know, something will come back. Now, there are other types of methods you can use. Post, if you want to give something to the API, delete, if you want to take something away, and there are various reasons why you would use that, but we're not going to focus on that during this webinar. In this webinar, we just want to know, how do we get data from a API into Alteryx, okay? We're all fine with that. And then the endpoint is all that put together. it's that command, and it's that method. Whap them together, and you've got an API request. So in this instance, we're getting information on me. You will send this command with the parameter Chris, the key with the key you've been given, and get is saying I want to get something, and that's that. So to put this into perspective, let's tell a story. You like stories, Ross?
I love stories.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so you are hungry, Ross. You're very hungry.
I'm starving, even though.
So we'll say it's late at night. It's about 7 p.m. You've just got home from work. You're thinking, I'm very hungry. I don't want to eat. I really can't. No, you do want to. Sorry, you don't want to cook. You don't want to cook. That's the important bit. Ross doesn't want to cook. Okay. But Ross remembers that randomly, as does happen sometimes outside the office, is he got a secret envelope which gave him a password to a very, very exclusive pizza restaurant, which promises to be one of the best pizza restaurants in the entire country. So he's there, hungry, thinking, you know what, maybe I should use this. So he decides he's going to go to this super exclusive pizza restaurant. Now he uses his password to get through the door, and this is not Ross, but Ross will be sitting in this woman's chair, looking over the menu. Now the menu is where he finds out what types of pizza are available. We can start to think, what kind of pizza do I want? Here's the menu. It tells me the options available. Here are those pizzas. You can choose between different types. There's this delicious looking meat feast with all sorts of chicken and bacon and whatnot. Or there's a more vegetarian option, with some tomatoes and some green things. You know what those green things are? I don't really know. Maybe basil. We'll call it basil for argument's sake, shall we? So there's the chef. He wants to cook something, as chefs often do. But there needs to be some sort of communication, doesn't there? Ross is sitting in his seat. The chef's standing in the kitchen. There needs to be some kind of communication, something that'll take the message from one to the other and back again. And that would be the waiter. Here's the waiter waiting for a command to go through and that communication. And once that has happened, here is Ross with some lovely painted nails, eating his pizza. So what happened in this story? Well, because it's a very strange and eccentric pizza restaurant, he needed a password. That was the key. His menu that he looked at the different pizza options was documentation. Then the waiter was the API. The waiter took that order, the command, from Ross to the chef, and then took the pizza, which is the data, from the chef to Ross. So that's essentially all that's happening here with an API. You need a key to get access to it, but you read the documentation, decide on what your order is, and then you send your order to the chef, and then the chef will give you something back. The chef will give you the data back, the pizza back. Interchangeable here. So, very good. So I'm hoping everything's clear. Now, Ross, without any knowledge of APIs, I'm wondering, do you have any questions, anything that's not clear?
No, I think that was a very good analogy.
Oh, thank you very much.
I haven't had any questions on the chat, so I think now we're quite all right.
Yeah, brilliant. So I just want to say to everyone sitting at home or in their office or in a cafe, listening to this riveting discussion of APIs, if you do have any questions, if there's anything that's not clear, please feel free to ask in the comment section, and Ross will read out those questions and we'll get you an answer. Okay? Brilliant. So without further ado, let us move on to an example of an API. So this is the Star Wars API. Someone has very, very nicely built this API. So as you can see, it says try it now. Underneath here, you can see here it says https://swappy.co/API/. So that is our stem. That is the thing. Whenever you are communicating with this API, you are always going to use that stem. Okay? So there's the first bit. However, you can see underneath here, need a hint. You've got some parameters. So planets 3. And here's the result. Here's what comes out. Here's that data. The pizza underneath result here. So, brilliant. So you can see here, you put the stem together. You then put it with the parameter. And the data has come out. Super simple. So let's have a look up here. So here's documentation. Brilliant. Just read this documentation now. So this documentation, to be honest, is not the best, I wouldn't say. For example, you look here, it says you want to look at a planet, planet 1. Now, when you look at the planets, you don't actually get any information about which number means which planet. The planet's down here. You can see here, it tells you how to request a planet. It just says planet 1. We can see that this is oh, sorry. I've just realized I can't pronounce this word. Tatooine. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, Tatooine. This is Tatooine. But, you know, what does planet 2 mean? What is planet 3? That's not there. So this isn't really the best kind of documentation, which is why I thought it served as quite a neat example, because it shows the sort of nature of documentation, but it also shows, you know, how documentation can fail you sometimes. A good documentation, an example of good documentation, would be where, you know, we look up here at characters or people they're under. You know, it would say 1 equals Luke Skywalker, 3 equals Darth Vader, for example. It would be very sort of explicit. It would say, you know, this equals this. This is what you put in to get this. And you'd be very clear about that. However, this doesn't do that, which is fairly unfortunate, but there's not much we can do about that. So how do you do this in Alteryx? What can you do with this? Here we have some examples. So I'm gonna build this from scratch. So we're gonna go to a new workflow, and I will give you all a minute to open up Alteryx if you want to follow along. There's no obligation to follow along at all, but if you do, I'll just give you a minute to do that. You got any plans this weekend, Ross?
No, I'm going to go home actually. It's getting towards Christmas, so
Yeah, so am I.
Holidays.
I'm looking forward to it. Not looking forward to the train journey though. I don't like sitting in trains. It bothers me.
It's not so far.
Yeah. Ross comes from a wee village outside, just outside of London. He's a village boy.
It's very quick.
I'm from Manchester, which is only really 2 hours on train from London to Manchester. But yeah, is not so quaint. I've never heard anyone describe Manchester as quaint myself.
It's good fun.
It's very fun. Right, so hopefully everyone's had time to open up Alteryx if that was their plan. So first of all, I'm just going to put in a text input. I'm going to call it URL or URL if you are enlightened like me. Let's go here, and so let's put in this stem, or they've called it a root. Copy it in and paste. Brilliant. So we've got the stem there. Now, I also want some numbers, because as you can see, if you want people, we need to have a kind of number base at the end of that, at the end of the API. That's how we do our parameter. So I'm just going to title this numbers. And we'll go here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just carry on like that. So we've got a nice sample here. Brilliant. Okay, now for this, I will need to append essentially. So I want you to use the append tool. The reason I want to use the append tool is because for every single number, every row that contains a number, I want this URL to go on the side, okay? So we can put that in, run that, and as you can see down here, we've got an O for each number. However, this time we've got this HTTP at the start, which is not what I wanted. However, not to worry, very easily solved. I'm just going to use a Regex tool here quickly. Now, if you don't know what Regex is, please do not worry. Just copy this and you'll have this fixed. So column to parse, set that to URL, put your regular expression in, HTTP \s, and then output replace. Okay, and that should replace that HTTP at the beginning. You don't need to understand Regex for this webinar. That was just a very, very quick fix to the issue, getting rid of that. But if you do wish to know a little bit more about Regex, then there's plenty of resources online. Just Google that and you'll be good. Now, we've got these stems and we've got these numbers. So I think now's the time to look at putting them together. So we're going to need a formula tool to put them together. But let's have a look at the documentation as to exactly how we will do that. So this very helpfully has an example of an API using people, and it tells us really how to get it done. So copy and paste that into here and put it down here for now. So I'm going to name this output column API. Now here you can see we've got this stem here and this parameter here. Okay, so we've got the stem in our URL field. So I'm going to put URL, then plus, then we want that to be people with a /, put that in speech marks, and then plus, and then just put that into the end of numbers. Okay, we can get rid of this. Now, type mismatching operator, not to worry. So what that'll be is these numbers are being interpreted as an integer. Now, an integer just means numeric data, essentially. So if we are trying to add that into a string, sometimes Alteryx is going to say, whoa, no. This doesn't match. So to solve that, I'm just going to put a select tool in here, test my theory. Oh, it's a byte actually. So I'm just going to change this to a VW string. So that means these numbers will be interpreted as text data. And hopefully, yeah, that has solved our problem. Brilliant. So let's run this. Okay. So down here, we have our API, and that looks correct to me. That seems like we're cooking with gas, but maybe we're not. So let's have a look and see if this works. So I'm going to just put in the search bar a download tool. And it would help if I could spell download, wouldn't it? Brilliant. So I'm just going to set this to the API so it knows that's what we want to download. And before I run this, I am just going to put in a block until done. Now, essentially, when you are downloading data from an API, it can be quite a long process. Sometimes depends how quick the API is. So I think in terms of best practice, it's a very good idea to put in this block until done tool. And essentially that means this first part of your workflow will run and then it'll stop here in this block until done. And only when all of this is finished will this run. Okay, so that's just very good sort of best practice. It means that you will save time eventually, because if you don't put that in, it'll try to do everything at once. And if one thing is slow, it slows everything else down. So that really does save you some time, which seems counterintuitive, but it does, I promise. So let's run that. And see what happens. Brilliant. Okay. So we've definitely got some download data. Just going to put a browse in here. Now, at this, I can't cache and run here, so maybe I'll cache and run here. Now, the good thing, why it's a good idea to do cache and run is because it takes quite a while to do this, even at stop and block, block until done, sorry. So it just makes things run that little bit smoother. And eventually, if I'm going to put in a few steps after the download tool, I would then cache and run at the step just after the download tool. That makes things a lot easier. But here we have quite a bit of data. So this has worked. This is how we know it's been successful. Brilliant. Okay. So let's just add this to a container. And we'll call this people. Now I just want to demonstrate that this is a very, very adaptable method. So you know what? I'll copy and paste these numbers, bring them here, and I'll copy and paste this stem. And I'm just going to append these again. It's taking a while because I should have closed this container. I'll do that now. Okay, yeah, so this is perfect. It's worked again, as one would expect. So I'm just going to copy and paste these two steps, just so I don't have to repeat them. Let's run this. Okay, perfect. So the exact same methodology can work when we look at films. So now we've got 10 here, and to my knowledge, there's only been 9 Star Wars films, so it's going to be very interesting to find out what pops up at that 10th column, if anything does. I'm going to add this column, add a new column, sorry, and we'll call this API. We're going to use the exact same methodology as before, URL, and then we're going to call this films sort of speech here with a / and then numbers. Okay, so this looks like it's going to come out correct. And here we are. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to put a block until done. Then a download tool here. Let's see what happens. Very interested to know what number 10 will be. Oh. Oh, wow. Not very up to date, I don't think. This,
A few years out of date.
Oh, that's quite upsetting, actually. No, well, as upsetting as it is, that kind of it still works at least. So Star Wars fans may be upset, but API fans will be very happy to know that this has worked. So that's very good. Now, essentially, that's really all you do if you are getting out data from an API. Often you can JSON parse the results. That kind of gives it a bit more sense. Load that here. As you can see here, because this is JSON, it's put our data into a much more recognizable format, a lot more readable for us. So that's one technique. The other technique would be to use our old friend Regex. Now, I'm not going to go into a big demonstration about Regex and how it works, but basically, it would recognize a pattern and then pass that out, and that can be incredibly useful. But most APIs will be in JSON format, and if you just dig out the JSON parse tool here, that'll give you a lot of sense. So what I would do here is I would just clean this up. We don't need the numbers, the API, the download header, we just need that JSON name. This is where I would cache and run workflow, just so we're not making too many requests to that API and again making the API owners incredibly angry, and possibly they could block us. That has been known to happen. And yeah, so we've got this, and you would parse that how you would parse that. Clean it how you would clean that. Sorry, I would normally use a transpose tool or a crosstab. I always confuse. No, I would want to use a crosstab tool. Sorry. I would use a crosstab tool to kind of make some sense out of this. Maybe get rid of a lot of these URLs here. I don't think they're particularly useful to me. So I would crosstab them and then sort of use select tool to get rid of all that. There's no point demonstrating that if you are in an API class or an API webinar. For Alteryx users, I'm sure you know how to use those tools, so no point me going over them. So I just want to ask, is anyone got any questions? Ross, do you have any questions yourself?
No, I think that was all very thoroughly explained. I like the choice of API as well.
He's a good student, flatters the teacher, But okay, so just want to maybe give people a minute to type in any questions. We've got 20 minutes for questions actually, so give you some time. If you've got any questions, please put them in. And if we get no questions, then we can end a little early. And I'll go and have some Christmas dessert, maybe. Mince pie, yeah. I wonder if we'll have some mince pies in the office. That sometimes happens. If you need any encouragement to apply for the data school, free mince pies is definitely a big one. And if it's not around at Christmas time, you'll still get some kind of sweet desserts for free, at least on a weekly basis. So just give it another 30 seconds or so. And if there are no questions, then I will bid you adieu. And for anyone who hasn't been able to download that PDF with the key terms, if that's not been possible, please comment your email address in the comments and I will send that to you via email later, or if you just want to ask questions, you know, after that, that's perfectly fine. We got any questions in?
Nope.
No questions.
Must have
Okay.
explained it very well.
Yeah, well, I've done a fantastic job. Brilliant. Okay. Makes me feel very confident in my webinar abilities. Well, brilliant. Okay, I hope that did help. I really think APIs are a thing that sound terrifying, you know. Just any kind of acronym sounds terrifying, sounds really, really complicated. What I hope I've been able to show in this webinar is that actually they're incredibly simple. Using them in Alteryx is incredibly simple. The actual API bit, I would say, is about 2 or 3, 4 tools. And then the rest of your work is really just using some very, very basic tools to clean and sort that data. And that's it, really. It really is a very, very simple thing to use. So thank you very much for listening. I'll send you that email to all who need it within a few minutes. And if you have any questions, feel free to reply to that email with questions. And very good. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Merry Christmas.